Hello and welcome to Celebrating Simple Life. I'm Kimberly and I've been planning parties and incredible events for the past 15 years. I'm passionate about connecting people, making gatherings purposeful, and making the most out of every moment. Join me as we learn together how to find joy, celebrate the simple things in life, use events to grow your business, entertain with purpose, and have a whole lot of fun along the way. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life. Today on Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast, I'm chatting with Jana Danielson, founder of LEAD Pilates. After 10 plus years in the world of HR and management consulting, her passion for Pilates and movement got the best of her. Jana's passion for Pilates began in early 2000s when she stumbled across a Shape magazine with a picture of Madonna gracing the cover and the word Pilates splashed across the page. Although Jana was not sure what this word meant at the time, as a bit of pop culture nut, she sought out a facility in Saskatoon, eager to try this new form of exercise. After a few sessions, she began to notice differences within her body and was completely hooked. Jana has worked to create a unique studio devoted to providing students with the latest trends in health and fitness. By individuals, for individuals. In her 9,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility, Jana and her incredible team offer almost 100 weekly classes from all ages, 8 weeks to 87 currently. They are experts in creating movement solutions so that people can enjoy the highest quality of life. From chiropractic, Naturopathic Medicine, massage therapy, physiotherapy, athletic therapy, reflexology, and body talk, their goal is to educate, inspire, and move the bodies that choose to walk through their doors every day. She believes in inspiring others to follow their dreams and share their talents. And with the world in the state that it currently is in, with so much concern to health and wellness and staying healthy and just making sure that we're all taking care of ourselves, I couldn't think of a more perfect episode for today. You are going to be so inspired by our beautiful conversation, so tune in. Hello, Jana. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
I've been looking forward to this for like a month.
So I was recently at an event at the Edwards School of Business where you were the guest speaker for the day, and I was just so inspired hearing your story and conversation. And before we jumped on here, I was telling you about how this sort of just flashed back to me remembering you from earlier days in your business when I came and did a class there, and it was kind of like I had almost forgotten about it and then was reminded of it as you were talking, and everything you were saying just really resonated with me. And I was happy that my girls were in the audience with me too, because they were intently listening to what you were saying, and you were such a great speaker. So I was so happy that our paths crossed at that event. What I wanted to know is not just where you are now, but this is the question I always get asked from listeners is, but I want to know back from the beginning. Mm-hmm. How did things happen and begin, and kind of know the nitty gritty and the, not even the good, the bad and the ugly of where things started. So
and there's lots
I'm sure there is. So I would love to know about you and your life and your career and how you got started as an entrepreneur and how we got to present.
Yeah. Okay. So, everybody has a story.
Yes.
Right? And so, my story starts in small town Saskatchewan. So
we're all good stories start.
They really, really do. And, I think as a kid growing up in an agricultural entrepreneurial family, it is what it is. Like you don't take those lessons learned until you're gone from that space. And I think it really wasn't until I was done university and starting my career that I started to notice, just a lot of that hard work and the idea of resilience. So if you run into a bit of a challenge, it's like, not like a Roomba vacuum cleaner where you're just going to start, bumping, you have to reposition. And so growing up in that small little town, you played every sport, otherwise your school didn't have a team, right? The rules of the small town. You didn't date boys from your town because that was another cardinal rule.
Our small town did not have that rule. And this is like a whole nother episode where we'll get into all of the things about small town, because I'm small town too.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, I broke that rule because my husband was
rule breaker
from my same little small town. But it just was one of those, everybody helped each other. You were all like one big family. And those were a lot of the values that I brought with me when I moved to Saskatoon for university. And so, going through, what was the College of Commerce then, not Edwards, and then doing my MBA and, starting my career, I worked at Yankee Transfer, which was a trucking company. So, and actually just out of university, I couldn't find a job in, I majored in HR. I couldn't even find a job in that area. So I worked, I don't know if many of you remember Winterco and Summerco that used to be down in the Midtown Plaza.
Yes, I do. I think that there might still be one of my old jackets hanging in my former home.
Vintage, hang on to those. Anyways, that's what I did. And it was one of those moments where, you come from a small town, you move to the big city, you get this degree, and then it was like, oh my gosh, like I'm working in retail.
Now what?
Now what? Exactly. So, you know what? Making lemonade out of lemons.
Which is my favorite thing to do.
Yes, it is, right? I just thought I'm going to be the best at selling these tracksuits and these winter jackets.
Hey, you sold me on a sweet winter coat. Must have been you.
It must have been, right? And so, the opportunity came to then, get my job at Yankee Transfer, and I took all that customer service that I learned from retail, the sales, the education, and I just added that on to what I learned in school and started my first job. And I think when you work in your first quote unquote career job, it gives you completely different insight than what you thought it was going to be when you were going through university and you had
Don't
these
you almost
big
think there should
signs.
be like some sort of like work experience prior, like part of your year one needs to be something where you're hands-on, because you're right.
Totally. And I think you get this on, I remember they used to sell College of Commerce sweats with like big dollar signs on the butt, right? And I think that's what, in my mind, it was just going to be, you got this piece of paper, you had these 4 years of learning, met amazing people, worked with amazing profs, and then it was just, that was your ticket.
Uphill to the dollar signs from there.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not, for some maybe, but that wasn't the ticket for me. And so, the path that I ended up going on through Yankee Transfer, we learned a ton in that industry. I then went and worked at the university for about 10 years, which was awesome because I worked in student services. I was able to work with, international students, Aboriginal students, students with disabilities, first-year students, their parents, and it just gave me a really broad spectrum of helping people transition from point A to point B, and always looking for, how can I help that one person, or how can this experience with me today might have been the only thing in this person's day that was positive. So I'm going to make sure that that person in front of me needs to feel like they're the only one that I am focusing on right now, so that when they leave this interaction, they have whatever, their question answered, their experience has been positive.
That is such a great perspective.
Really
I think
is.
if more people thought about that even for a second in a day in any industry that you're in, we would be a better place.
It would be, right? Even think of today, like when you see parents talking to their kids, but yet they're on their phone, and it's just like, what are we teaching? What are we valuing? I always say it's quality time over quantity time. Yeah. So that's so that's where I was at the university. We started having our kids. It was an awesome place to be, while I was on my 3 mat leaves and, the 4.5 years, but then kind of started getting the itch for something a little bit different. The entrepreneurial spirit in me was like, okay, it's, it's time. We're going through this phase of your life where now maybe we can look in a different direction. And that's what I did. I went and worked for a small boutique human resource consulting firm downtown. And you know what? Then got really great experience. My confidence was just increasing month after month. And after about 2 years there, I decided to go out on my own. So I was doing my own consulting, helping businesses get healthy. But in the meantime, I was really, I just really bought into this whole concept of Pilates. And that, that goes back to probably my high school days where, I don't know about you, but there's some people like me who deal with all of their stress and anxiety in their gut. So it would be like finals, and I would be like, not to the verge of getting sick, but like just this horrible twisting in my stomach. I remember my mom used to say, well, you're just a stomach person, Jana. And I'd be like, yeah, I guess I am a stomach person, right? I never got migraines or I didn't get heart palpitations, but I was just, and so that's what I chalked it up to. But as I went through university, these stress times with my stomach got more frequent. I started going, I went to my doctor to see what was going on. After about 9 months of testing, really like nothing came up that was like diagnosable. But in the meantime, my journey took me from 1 medication to 3 medications to 5 medications. And I started thinking to myself, like, how I can't even get up in the morning. I can't have 24 hours of pain-free living. How will I be a mom one day? How will I be effective at my job? I was newly married at that point. I was like, how am I going to be, the best Jana I can be for Jason if I can't even get up? So that's when I found Pilates, and it completely changed my life.
So brought you, can I ask what brought you to, like, you found Pilates. So what made you explore, obviously having a child with health concerns, this is like always top of mind for me as well, but how did you decide to explore alternatives, which I guess Pilates would technically be considered an alternative versus taking medication from a doctor? How did you come across that? Like, what did you see?
I used to be, and I taught fitness throughout university, right?
Okay.
And it was like in those early 90s where fitness was, you judged your workout by how sore you were the next day, right? That was the world of fitness. I was going to reflect
back on Billy Blanks and the Taebo videos that we would do in our college classes, high school classes.
Like Buns of Steel, Tammy Lee Webb, right? All that kind of stuff. So I just thought to myself, you know what? There has to be a different way. Like, there has to be a different way to treat your body for it to be fit, using that in quotes. And you know what? Honestly, my body hurt when I moved, and my body hurt when it didn't move. And I was like, I just need to, I don't even know if there was the one thing. And why Pilates? I wish there was some big inspirational story, but literally I was in Safeway getting groceries. I saw Madonna on the cover of Shape magazine. I think it was like July 1999.
Sweet.
Yeah, and it said, I didn't even know what it said, but it said Pilates. I thought it said pilots. And I was like, what is this word? So then I went home and I got the leisure guide because we couldn't Google back then.
That's right.
And I flipped through, and Lakewood Civic Center had Pilates. And I started doing 2 mat classes a week. I had done some yoga before, and I think yoga was great for me. I just didn't connect with it in the way that I think a lot of people do for a consistent practice. But when I went to this Pilates class, it was very intriguing because I couldn't even breathe the way the other people in class were breathing. I couldn't even, what I know now is diaphragmatic breathing, which we know is like the fundamental core of what we do. If we can't breathe with our diaphragm, which is our main muscle of respiration, our body at its most basic level, which is a cellular level, is going to be negatively impacted. So what normally would have been like, this is dumb, I don't want to do it anymore, because I couldn't do it. And I was used to movement was easy for me. Play a sport, train for a marathon, whatever it was, I did it. And my body would do it. This was different. My body wouldn't do what my brain was asking it. And sometimes my brain didn't even know what I was supposed to ask it to do. Right. Because there were all these big muscles taking over. And so it intrigued me. And I went back twice a week, and I started noticing after about 8 weeks, my pain was starting to, I didn't have as much pain. And then I started to accidentally, I would miss my lunchtime pill dispensary. Yes. And I'd be like, oh, dang, it's like 12:45. I was supposed to take my pills 45 minutes ago. And prior to Pilates, if I did that, the rest of my day would have been an absolute SH storm, because the pain would just taken over. Yeah. So then I started thinking, okay, what is it? Like, what have I changed? I haven't really changed my diet. There was nothing but this 2 times a week class that I was doing. And I didn't want to tell anybody that I was starting to feel better, because I didn't want to jinx it. So, but besides my pain going away, I started noticing like the physique of my body change, and I was sleeping better, and I just had more energy. And I told this story at my Edwards talk, was that my Baba, who is 101 years old now, I always wanted to get really nice leather zip-up boots for winter, but my calves were not, it wouldn't allow me to zip up the zipper in the boots I wanted. And I was sharing this with my Baba one night, and she just said, oh, Jana, we're Ukrainian. We're big-boned, forget those boots, just get the ones that lace up. And I'm like, but Baba, there's some really great Ukrainians who have really great boots, and I just want to be one of those people. And that's the first thing I noticed. So I started taking, that winter, my first winter of taking Pilates, I went to Aldo, I think it was, and I tried on a pair of black zip-up boots. It didn't have a big Velcro, or not Velcro, but big elastic to allow for the extra space. And I was like, I did my boots up, and I was like, okay, there is something magical about this, because I'm feeling better from the inside out. I'm looking better. People are saying I'm taller. And that really resonated with me on so many levels. And then I wanted to learn, like, why? Mm-hmm. What was happening with this movement and this breathing that was completely changing my body?
This can't all be coincidences.
Exactly. No. Yeah. And so I didn't know then. But that literally was the springboard to a complete career shift.
I have goosebumps right now as we're talking, because every single thing that you're saying is exactly the types of stories and things that I personally have experienced in my own life, with things that have gone on in a completely opposite way. But I love that you looking at the Madonna magazine was the little tiny thing, because this is like my constant message and the thing that I say all the time. And I can only say that because I have had personal experience that this has happened, or else maybe I would just be a crazy person. It is those little tiny things that when you pay attention and slow down enough to be aware of things going on around you, you standing in the grocery store line. I mean, okay, if we're talking back in the 90s, we weren't standing in grocery store lines on our phones back then. We weren't. But now, you aren't seeing those things. Yeah. And you are stating that looking at a magazine title ultimately was a pivotal moment of changing
it totally was.
The course of your life. And I love that, because I think that is like the constant message. Slow down and look around you. Notice things.
No, it absolutely is. And I think, fast forward to now, I think we hear a lot of that, mindset and manifesting. And whatever it was 5 or 6 years ago with The Secret. And I love all of that. But the one thing that I find is sometimes missing, or the way people interpret that, is that if I just cross my fingers and my legs and just wish for fill in the blank, that it'll happen because I'm manifesting it. But what we need to remember is that there's a huge action plan that has to come with that mindset and manifesting. Like, it's not just going to drop out of the ceiling.
Well, and I think that is case in point, no matter what somebody's belief system is on any of it. The way I was brought up in life too was, well, if you pray about it, it's going to happen, or the answer will come to you. And not that I don't disagree with the power, and yes, I believe in God, and I believe that there is like more. I don't believe that we are in control of what's going on here. However, if you are not, you are also given arms and legs and a brain and mind and people who speak into your life and different things that you have to sometimes take with a grain of salt and sometimes no. And I think that comes from the stillness of trusting your intuition as well.
It is. Right? And I think you said a really important word there. Like, it's the stillness that, because sometimes it's like the most subtle little tap on the shoulder or little whisper. So if we're not willing to take those moments to actually nurture ourselves as, moms and business people and just, contributing members of society, we are less impactful just overall as a human being.
Oh, 1000%. I love that. So you're noticing yourself then feel better and all of that, which, oh man, we are going to have like a whole series of episodes here, because I have so many other things that this could lead on to with that. But so then how then did that, obviously once you're starting to even feel a tiny little bit better when you haven't been feeling good, it opens your mind to hope, first of all, and the possibility that you just have energy then to move forward in other things too, right? So everything probably started feeling a little bit better.
For sure. And what I realized at that point, which is literally what my business has been built on for the past 12 years, which I probably didn't make this connection until a couple of years ago, was I'm never negative about our medical system. Our medical system does have a purpose.
Yes.
And for people who are diagnosed with certain conditions and diseases, yes, 1,000,000%. But the problem is there are so many things that we deal with in our quality of life, like back pain and knee pain and headaches and brain fog and sleeping issues, like all these things that we've been conditioned through marketing and that world to think, okay, well now for my headache, a leave works for 12 hours. So I only have to take 2 a day. Right?
And this is my only option.
Exactly.
Yes.
But when we know what the real purpose is, and if it's not meeting your needs or serving your needs, I wasn't looking to Pilates for an answer for my pain. I was just looking for some way to move my body. But what I learned through that, and then why I wanted to get certified, and when I decided to do my training, I remember my husband saying, why do you want to do this? Right? Because we had 3 little boys at that point. Yes. And I said, you know what? This has changed my life. It changed his life because he had a lot of old tree planting kind of injuries. And I said, if I only learn this for you and I and these 3 little boys that we've brought into the world, and I can impact our lives in a different way, that is enough of a return on my investment. And that's all it was supposed to be. We were laying in bed that one night having that conversation. And as I started to learn more about posture and circulation and the fascial system and this really simple form of movement that deals with the health of our spine, because our health of our spine really dictates the health of our body, I started thinking, well, what if I just had a few of my friends come twice a week and do a class? And then Jason said, hey, I'll get a few of my buddies. We'll come and do twice a week class. And that's how it literally started, like so innocently.
I love that.
Tuesdays and Thursdays here in Arbor Creek in Saskatoon. We would do women, like my friends from 7 to 8, his buddies from 8 till 9. And that was in the fall of 2008. By January of 2010, I was teaching 16 classes a week out of our basement, which our boys, it would be like Lego Central during the day, and then we would have to convert it to the Pilates studio. And then we were farming still back then, so we sold some extra grain, invested in some Pilates equipment, and along with my HR consulting, so I would see my clients upstairs in my office, and then I'd head downstairs to see clients and teach classes. And it really was, one of those moments where Jason again said to me, listen, like this is no longer a hobby. Like you are offering something that people are looking for, and you need to, you're great as an HR consultant, but you are amazing as a movement educator and instructor of Pilates. So we found our first studio space in June of 2010 and opened in September.
Wow.
And so that was a big moment, because not that I didn't feel like I was a legitimate, Pilates studio owner when I was in my basement, but taking it out of our home was just kind of that next step.
Yeah, and don't you find sometimes, as scary as it is, it's the actual journey and act of risk.
Oh, 100%.
That puts that in, because you have more to lose. Right? Yeah. You've more to lose. Nothing's going to go sideways teaching out of your basement. No. You can close up shop tomorrow and it's fine,
Zero
right?
Overhead. Yeah.
But you probably look back and are like, hey, maybe I should have just left it like that some days.
Those days seem so simple.
I know,
so
right?
Easy. Yeah.
But I feel like that right there is case in point of there's just this feeling as an entrepreneur that you just know there has to be something more, and you can't let it go.
No, and maintenance mode that's not what gets me up in the morning. Like when something is becomes routine, it's like, okay, great.
Where's the next challenge?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So how then I'm just thinking of this even from, obviously because I have done similar things in my life in very different fields. How then did you kind of, for your own self and for your family, change to the next steps of, wow, I'm used to being at home. And obviously as kids, as ages and stages change, life evolves as well. And that's different than newborn babies to present, obviously.
No, for sure.
But how did you get into the new routine then of actually physically having to leave your house and being in a space and managing the balancing act of that?
When I look, I think when you're in the middle of it, you just you just go, right? And again, going back to our farming roots, we were still farming at that time too. So we opened up in September of 2010. Jason was back in Norquay, going back and forth, with harvest.
Spending all the hours on the field.
Right? He was, so there was that whole piece. We just really, I think tapping into your community is really important. We have really great friends that rallied around us. And if we needed help with the kids, they helped with the kids. And we just, for those first 4 months, I was literally at the studio 7 days a week. We had some admin support in the evenings and on the weekends, but otherwise I would teach and be at the desk, and it was a lot. But you know what, you just manage.
Well, you do, and it's hard sometimes. I find, at least for myself, and I can imagine you would feel this way too, to look back, you sometimes don't know how it all worked.
No.
Like, it's such a bit of a blur, but it almost teaches you, because I think I won't say this for 100% certain, but there's certain characteristics and qualities of people who are entrepreneurs. Does not matter what the industry is. I think there's just certain little things, and for some people they maybe shouldn't be, and they are unaware of that, and they can't figure out why it doesn't feel right. And for some people they maybe should be, but just are too scared to actually take the leap, but always have this lingering but what if, and they don't do that either. So there's kind of both sides of it. But I think there's always this feeling of, at least for myself, I've always thought I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't.
No.
Like, I'm scared to take there's fears and scares and all of that kind of stuff, but I will sleep at night less if I don't follow what my heart and gut and world feels like it's pointing me in the direction of, versus staying and playing it safe.
Agreed. And at that point, like when we opened the studio, the boys were 9, 7, and 5. And I literally can remember, I sat down with them, and because it was starting to wear on them a little bit, like they were really missing me. And so the way I explained it to them one day was, I said, do you know when you go, to the park or the school grounds with a friend and you get on the teeter-totter, and if you weighed the exact same amount as your friend and you got on the teeter-totter and you were looking across at each other and no one was moving, you were trying to jump up, the teeter-totter wasn't moving, how fun would that be? And they were like, well, that wouldn't be very fun, because it's fun to, to go up and down with your friend on the teeter-totter. And so I said, that's exactly what mom and dad are doing right now with this new business. I said, it's our family and the business are on this teeter-totter, and it's going to be a really fun ride. Sometimes it might get scary if you get, bumped a little bit, but you're not going to fall off. The friend on the other side of the teeter-totter is going to make sure of that. So sometimes, our family is going to be at the top of the teeter-totter, and sometimes mom's business is going to be at the top of the teeter-totter. It's just how, the choices we've made, that's what our life is like.
I love that. That's such a great analogy.
And I really understood. And I said, you know what, you guys, I can be there to come to your science fair, and I don't have to ask somebody if I can, or if you're sick, I can make sure. So that's kind of, mom and dad have chosen this so that we can have more freedom around how we spend our time. But sometimes, our business needs love and care and attention, just like you guys do. And it really did go a long way, because they would still kind of talk about that after. And in fact, it was probably the year after where the 4 of us were sitting around the table. Jason must have been back in Norquay. I think it was seeding or harvest. And our younger 2 boys were talking to each other. And Will, our middle guy, said to Tommy, our youngest, Tommy, what are you going to be when you grow up one day? And Tom says, well, I'm going to be an NHL goalie, and I'm going to play in the NFL. And Will says to him, well, you can't be both, because the seasons overlap. Hockey and football overlap. And Tommy must have been about 6 years old then, and he looked over at him and he said, yeah, I can. Mom does lots of different things.
Aww.
And honestly, Kimberly, it was one of those moments where I just, I wanted to just freeze time, because, we don't, they just are. They were born into a mom and a dad that come from the entrepreneurial world that, sometimes do burn the midnight oil.
Yeah.
And maybe don't practice what we always preach around self-care and stuff like that, because there's this deadline or there's this bank meeting or whatever there is, right? But it was like that moment where at 6 or 7, however he was, and I just paused, and I almost gave myself this virtual little pat on the back, this little hug, because that's what I want for them, is to think that they can be anything in this world that they absolutely want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that it's so important to have them be involved in these decisions as age permits. from young years already, they're aware of what they're seeing and what's going on around. And I think when the time comes to involve them in these conversations, I've had, obviously roller coasters throughout life, right? Of things that sometimes feel like they're working really great and sometimes not, where you feel like you're just either letting everybody down or doing not enough.
Yeah.
And I think I was reading the Rachel Hollis book, Girl, Wash Your Face. And she was talking about mommy guilt. And I've referenced this on the podcast before, but just the perspective of hearing from more women specifically, and I will just throw that out there as generally are the people in more of the role of sort of being more primarily responsible. So kid is sick. Generally, I don't know about your household, but our house, it's mama that stays home when they're sick. But I've set it up that way because I have that ability and flexibility to do that. And I think teaching our children, and I'm a girl mom, not a boy mom, but in both the same, that you want them to be a part of the conversation and you want them to not just see you always feel guilty for everything. Like that's not teaching them to be confident, strong little people either. And it's gotten to the point now where I would say 6 out of 7 days, at least one, if not both of my girls, when they come home from school or from activities or whatever they're doing, will say, "What did you have on the go today, Mom?" Where they initiate it before I've even said anything about anything else. And I've like, obviously moms ask about the day, dads ask about the day and like how your day was at school. But for them to on their own be reciprocating that for me too, I'm like, pat, pat, pat. This makes me so grateful that you understand that I'm a human being and I'm not just this like magical person that is only here to serve your world, you know? So I love that. I think that's really important. That's cool. So what would you say then in regards to, I really don't love the word balance, but in regards to juggling the things that you have on the go with your personal life, your work, and obviously marrying those together is how my world works, where it doesn't feel like one or the other. It's just kind of one and you're trying to keep it all up, right? How do you stay motivated on a day-to-day basis with all of those things that are on the go? And there's a lot going on in the world right now that can be reasons to get uptight and distracting and all of that. So what motivates you?
There is so much uncertainty in the world right now, and while gathering and coming together needs to take extra precautions and in a lot of cases a temporary hiatus right now, this doesn't mean that we still can't connect in unique ways to keep our relationships and connections strong. If you are on the lookout for a creative way to cheer up a friend, show your significant other, bestie, co-workers, and special people in your life that you care, I've curated adorable, delicious, and unique candy grazing boxes for you to ship out. A beautiful, delectable candy grazing box can be shipped right to your door or as a surprise to a friend's door on your behalf. Free delivery in Saskatoon and shipping available across Canada. And because we could all use a little more joy right now, you can get an exclusive code to receive 15% off by typing CELEBRATE15 at checkout. You can click right from your home at celebratingsimplelife.com and use the code CELEBRATE15 because today is a great day to celebrate.
I mean, I have the luxurious position of feeling like I've never felt, oh, I have to go to the studio in the clinic today, or oh, I have to have. Are there days when I'm tired? For sure, yeah. But there are just so many wins in a day in the industry we're in, and what we do from just educating people, coaching my team, it just, that's the stuff that motivates me. Like I'm 46. I would like to do this for, X number of more years and then kind of move on to my next part of my life once the boys are all done school, right? And so I often find myself thinking like, what is my legacy going to be? And what do I need to be doing for myself from a morning routine, evening routine, to make sure that I'm showing up for all the people in my life the best way that I can. And so I think that, I mean, that's very motivating to me, to just think of really like the humble beginnings of just, this was just a hobby. And how many people go into business like, I never thought it would be this. And so maybe that's why I don't feel, do I feel pressure? For sure I do. Of course. Right? Like there's, you know, CRA stuff and bench stuff and payroll stuff. And so, yeah, there is pressure, but when it happens so organically and it just feels like, I mean, even we launched our online studio this September. So that was something new. We're just about to launch our very first product in about 6 or so weeks. So there's new things that have come down the pipeline for me. I mean, for everything that works, there's 10 things that didn't, right? So it's not just that there's been 2 things I've been focusing on. There's like 20 things. Totally. And 2 of them have stuck. Yeah. So then you start kind of nurturing those. Yes. But, you know, that's really, that's one part of what motivates me. You know, my team, the clients that walk through our doors, or I had a lady from Australia just send me this amazing video testimonial about, you know, the online courses she's been doing with me. That part is motivating. But then there's the other part of, you know, these 3 young men that we are raising in this house. And like, that's motivating for me too. When you hear people say, oh, I saw your boys at the golf course, and what great young men they are. Or they were like things like
I could just pack this all up today, job done. Right?
Yeah, totally. Because that's what it matters. Mm-hmm. When you're not around them to, you know, give them the stink eye about something. So that's the other thing that motivates me, is that, you know, the legacy for Jason and I is going to be, you know, through those boys. And we often say to them, like when they're having their little skirmishes, like, if Dad and I, you know, when we are no longer on this earth, you guys are going to have each other. And I mean, the extended family that you end up, you know, growing and raising. But, you know, kind of in a way that blood connection is going to be there forever. And I know that sometimes families kind of ebb and flow and grow apart. And I mean, I've experienced that too. But just so that they realize that, you know, the 5 of us in this pod is not a forever thing.
That's right.
Like, they're going to be in very different places very, very shortly. Mm-hmm. So what can you take from experiences and fun memories that are going to leave that imprint on your heart? So that part motivates me too.
Totally. Well, and it's almost like the same way you visualized your working at Winter Cove was the same type of scenario, where that was an experience, and every day is an experience, and what are you going to take from it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally hear you. So what then, I think sometimes this is something that gets misinterpreted, especially on social media and different things, with how to be more resilient and how to stay motivated. Yeah. And it's easy to see all the fluffy quotes and the things that come around, which, don't get me wrong, I'm a part of it. Yeah. I curate experiences for a living, so that's all a part of life. Yeah. But when you are having a minute, an hour, a week, or a month of feeling maybe not so motivated or disconnected, or maybe things are just shifting and off and just not feeling right. I think every human gets into that zone, and I think some people find it harder to snap out of that than others, which shows sort of resilience, and mental health plays into it, and the health and wellness of your body, obviously. But what for you, what is something, I guess, that when it doesn't go right in a day, or you get a bad email or text message, or somebody says something that is just not what you needed, what do you do to try to snap yourself out of that? And like, what would be an actual tangible something that you do that makes you be like, you know what, I'm not going to let this one thing ruin my week? Yeah.
I think, so I felt like that a couple days ago. I just felt like it was, all these withdrawals were being, you know, made from me, like lots of messages on Slack, which is a messaging system we use at the studio and clinic. Email, like just lots of stuff. And, you know, Jason walked through the door after his day, and I think he could just tell, and he's like, what's going on? And I just said to him, I just need to unplug for a moment. Because it is, I mean, you can have that force field around you and try and, you know, have your shield up to deflect all those things. But there's a point where I was just like, I just want to like exit stage left.
Yeah.
And I think the words I used were, because I remember Tyler, our oldest son, he was just having a day. And I walked into his room and he was under his covers and it was middle of the day. And I'm like, what's going on?
What in the world?
And he's like, I just want to go to the moon. And so I said to Jason, like that was 2 days ago. I said, I just want to go to the moon today. I just want to pluck myself out of this space, be somewhere else, and I'll be okay. Like I'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm fine.
But I just want to, exactly. So I know what works for me is just acknowledging. I used to have a much shorter fuse, and I think I used to just care a little bit too much about not ruffling feathers and trying to smooth things out. And I don't know if it's a thing of getting older or just getting more confident in my own skin.
Experience.
I think so too, is that I'm a very, like, as part of leading my team, growing my business, I'm always very aligned with my beliefs and values. Like I never stray from that. So when I need to, like, when there's a tough decision to make and I'm like, I don't know what to do, or if there's a day like that where I'm like, I just need to do a little time out, is if I can just reconnect with those values. And as we were going into 2020, I did an online free webinar just the end of December. And part of that, what I took there's about 60 people online with me, and we did a little exercise where we created basically our 3 pillars. So what were our 3 pillars for 2020 going to be that were really going to define who you are and how you're going to live this year? And the 3 pillars that I decided I was going to really focus on were authenticity, being intentional, and being more celebratory. And so,
oh, I love that. You're speaking my language.
Yeah. And you know what? Like I live and die by those 3 pillars. The girl who used to do my waxing no longer does my waxing because I was just tired of just complaining and I mean all this kind of stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm not being authentic if I walk into this room every X number of weeks. So I'm just gonna self-select out of this. And
I'm like nodding as if everybody can see me. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what we need to hear.
That's really helped me. Like just when I have those moments, first of all, acknowledging them. Like if you dismiss them, it doesn't mean it goes away.
It's a missed opportunity.
It is. You're just shoving it into the corner for it to become a bigger issue.
Fester into.
Yeah. And you know what? You know what might happen is you might push that issue that has nothing to do with your amazing spouse or partner or children or mother-in-law, but they just might be in the crossfire of that moment where they're just asking for something, and that little thing you pushed into the corner became a big thing, and they're on the wrong end of so, and I've experienced that enough where I've had to go with my tail between my legs to someone in my family or on my team and say, you know what just happened there was not what I had intended, and I'm really sorry that is how this ended up, or that I as your mom I shouldn't have said that, or as this is what I wish I would have said instead. So keeping those pillars in my head really does kind of snap me back to what is important. And I'll always I'm always one to say nurture your spirit, and if you want to be a little bit pissed off or sulky about it, then do that. Allow yourself that time, and then package it up in a nice little box like a Christmas or birthday gift, put a bow on it, thank it for its lessons, and then send it on its way. Because and it's one of the things that I learned. I love Brendon Burchard as like one of my favorite high performance coaches. I love his blogs, I love his books. And in his book, High Performance Habits, he talks about how do you go through a day, like a fast forward, high productive day, and come home at the end of the day and be focusing on the one crappy thing that happened all day compared to the 57 amazing things. And so in his book, he talks about these transition moments, and he coaches in the book around having either like a saying, a mantra, some little physical, like maybe like a self-hug, something that we do in transitions in our day. So for example, when I leave home and get to the parking lot at LEAD, that's a transition where I'm like, so, on a good day, I hear like on 80s on 8 something by Def Leppard or Bon Jovi, and I just crank it on my way, and I'm like, yes, I'm gonna own this day, right? Especially so. But when I get in there, sometimes we'll do little things. Like one of my favorite sayings is clarity creates confidence, and confidence creates clarity. Sometimes I'll just say that out loud to myself, or I'll just like own the day, or show up or be present, whatever it is.
Yes.
And then if I'm going into, a Zoom call, or I'm going to teach a private, I'll just always have that little theme with me. And it kind of reminds my brain to bring closure to what I was just doing.
Yes.
So that I can have some file space in my brain for who or what is kind of next in line.
Yes.
And I've actually found that as I've gotten to practice that habit more and more, I can come home at the end of my day and I can be like, these really great things happened. And yeah, you know what? There was this little stumble, but we've dealt with it, instead of the first thing that, when you do the debrief at the end of the day with your spouse or sister or mom.
Yeah.
It's often just that first big spout of, here's what happened and here's what she did. And it, right? So there's a lot less of that in my world. And I just, I
love that. That is so great.
Yeah.
I have not ever read that book, and I'll tag it in the show notes because I love that concept.
Yeah.
So in your business then, and in your life, you've alluded to some of these things already, but what would you say in the years since, I guess, opening the physical doors to a space until present would be like some of the milestones or accomplishments that you feel most proud of yourself, your team, the way your family has stepped up?
Okay. Yeah. So, we realized about 2.5 years into our physical space that we were outgrowing that space. We had a 5-year lease, and so we started looking for more space. We expanded from 2,000 square feet, our studio on Taylor Street, to over 9,000 square feet. What we have now, we brought in a really, I wouldn't say like a new business model, because there are models where there's like gyms with chiro clinics or physiotherapy, right? But not to the extent that we have done it. And like, honestly, Kimberly, like we built that, there's 47 of us on that team, and a huge accomplishment is like we built that from the ground up. And we do have some guys on our team. We have 3 amazing clinicians that are part of the team. But up until a year ago, we were 44 amazingly intelligent, powerful, and inspiring women that when you think about working in a workplace with only women, I think we only think about the negatives.
There's rarely anything really positively said about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we have, you hear in the words of Rachel Hollis, like straightening each other's crowns. And that is going to be one of the pieces. Like that's a huge milestone for me, because it just, finding the right people who have that kind of attitude is, I love coming to our full team meetings we do twice a year, because it just, they're my work family, and they believed in a vision that for a lot of them, they saw like blueprints rolled out on a Starbucks table when I was trying to recruit them to be chiropractors and massage therapists and physiotherapists under my space. We didn't even have a physical space to show them, and they bought in. So I think that's a huge milestone. We've had really cool things happen. We got funding from the National MS Society in 2016, and we did a collaborative research project with the University of Saskatchewan on Pilates and MS. We found statistical significance. We're published in the International Journal of MS Care. In 2018, I was named the inaugural Women Against MS, inductee for the Saskatoon area, like Saskatchewan. So like there's moments like that have been huge milestones. We got some recognition in Pilates Style magazine in January with our new online studio. There are those business milestones which show that, there has been hard work and there has been growth. And, the stories of, do you remember the day we opened when we had no internet and we had no phone? So we were using my cell phone. People were calling the clinic. I was hotspotting so we could run our, those kinds of, those where in the middle of it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is not what I envisioned on our first day. But it is what it is, and it's what has made us, I guess, us.
Well, and it helps you reflect on the days that do go sideways.
Yeah.
Now when, okay, you have your internet, you have your phone,
Yeah.
that's all fine. But other things that come up to be like, you know what, we were fine then.
Yes,
we're going to
exactly.
be okay now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, the milestones, I mean, I'm starting to count down, like, what might seem silly, but I mean, I had 84 loan payments. I now have 27 loans.
Yes,
like things like
that's
that.
a big deal.
Where it's like, and again, and that's where that celebratory pillar of mine has come in. Those moments where someone on my team finishes a certification, or, you know, we have this, on our Slack channel, we have a channel called The Power of Three. So that's where we let, you know, if there's clients that have made tremendous changes in their lives, or if we've referred and kind of created a personalized wellness team for someone and they come back and give us feedback, that's where we really celebrate our successes on our Power of Three channel. So I'm trying to find the mini milestones that happen a lot, like each day, versus waiting for, like, you know, our 5-year anniversary at LEAD will be on July 20th. Yeah, that's going to be a big celebratory day. But to find those moments during your day where you're like, yeah, we need to, even if it's just taking a great big breath or giving a client a great big hug when they're in tears because they were able to do something they haven't done for years, that's, you know, that's when it matters. Having a client run up to me probably about 4 weeks ago, and she just held me and she just started crying. So of course, she didn't say anything, so I also started crying. And she just said to me, this place has changed my life. My mental health, my spiritual health, my physical wellness, she's like in her early 60s, and she's like, I have a whole new outlook and lease on life. And I just wish it didn't take me 60 years to find out about this place. But those are, you know, those aren't, you know, grandiose where they're media worthy in a lot of cases, but that's the stuff that really, at the end of the day,
and
matters.
those add up to the big things. You wouldn't be celebrating a 5-year anniversary if you didn't have those celebrations along the way, right? Keeping you guys all going and motivated and doing what you love.
No, absolutely.
I love that. And as an event planner, and as somebody who, we celebrate half birthdays in our house, we celebrate all kinds of crazy things that aren't social media worthy, but they're the things that we do on a regular basis just because it's fun to have something to look forward to, and it doesn't need to be something big and grandiose in order for it to be celebrated. And when I ask my children, or asking, even just talking with girlfriends, it is rarely the big things that come up when you're like talking about what is something you remembered. And even we were recently on vacation, and I asked the girls what their favorite thing was, and the answers that they gave me, I was like, well, first of all, like, oh man, like, should we have spent this much money on a holiday? Secondly, just their little answers, I was like, wow, you know, like, these are the things that are important to you. It wasn't the this and this that I thought were going to be the big highlights of the trip, but these little things where just being able to sit next to me for 4 hours on the airplane was one of the answers, you know, and I'm like, oh, be still my heart, like that. Those are the things that make me feel, like that it matters. Oh my goodness, I love this. So before we wrap this up, I'm going to power through a couple little questions that are like, just get to know Jana, not just the business. So you've addressed some of these already, but we'll just go through them fast. What is one thing that you do in the morning that sets your tone for the day?
I have recently got into a tapping routine. Have you heard of tapping?
I have heard of this and never experienced it, but want to know more.
A friend of mine from New Zealand, Leonie Blackwell, she's a naturopath, and she has the Essence Healing Center. And when I got to meet her and learn more about her, she does these amazing little tapping scripts. They really wake up my parasympathetic. They nurture my parasympathetic, which is our rest and digest. You could go through this little mantra, but basically you're tapping on some of the, you know, pressure points in the body. And I just find, even Jason has started doing my little 10-minute routine with me in the morning, and we give each other a high five after. Like, it's just that over the past 6 weeks has really impacted the perspective on my day.
Interesting. I love it. Okay, so I'm definitely going to need to link something about this as well, because I'm going to have everybody asking me, and I won't be able to explain it. I love that. So what is your coffee order, and do you drink coffee?
No coffee, but I love my teas.
Good.
Yeah, peppermint tea.
Peppermint tea.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wake me up too, hey? What is something that you always have in your purse for day-to-day life?
My pinky ball.
What is this?
I just took it out of my purse before I came. You can see it there on my
I love it.
Yeah. So I have a little, we sell them at the studio.
Is it like a lacrosse ball?
It's way better than a lacrosse ball, but it's for fascia release.
Yeah.
So I keep it in my bag. I've probably given away over my lifetime like 150 of those at various airports and resorts and things like that.
I was going to say, I feel one of my good friends always has a ball such as this in her airline bag.
Yes. So if I get a headache, I use it on my head. If I'm feeling a little bit of hip or glute discomfort, I'll sit on it. I use it for my shoulders.
It's like magic.
Yeah, it is like magic. It's instead of my Tylenol or Advil,
yes,
I pull out my pinky ball when I need it.
Okay, you're the first person to ever say that. I love that answer. What is one thing that you do, and you've addressed this already, but I'll ask you for one more tip. Okay. Something that you do for yourself for your mental health, big or small?
I love to my diaphragmatic breathing. Even if I'm just at a red light,
anywhere
on, driving downtown, I just find that diaphragmatic breathing, even if it's 5 or 6 breath cycles, is almost like a brainwash for me, and it just takes me down a few notches. And in those moments where I feel like things are kind of spiraling,
you want to go to the moon.
Yeah, when I want to go to the moon, the one thing that I always have control over is my breath. And then once I connect with that, then things seem to just fall into place a little better.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've given us already 1,000,001 amazing pieces of advice, but if you were going to leave my listeners today with one thing to take away from this, what would you say?
Yeah. I would say that, as women, I feel like the person we need to be the most gentle to first is ourselves. Mm-hmm. We hear that saying about, donning your own mask before others on an airplane, and you hear that whole story. But when I started being gentler to myself, as if I was a friend of myself, I just found that I was able to just not manage, but really flourish in a different way. And whatever that is for someone, going for a walk or, whatever it is, fill in the blank, but just be gentle. And when you can focus on the gentleness, you can find, or maybe it's not find, but maybe it's just reconnect with that amazing person that's in there that may just be pushed to the side a little bit because we're too fast forward. Gentleness brings out our true essence of who we are.
Oh my goodness, I could cry. This is so beautiful. This has been such an unbelievable conversation. I could talk to you for hours. There's something about talking with you. I feel like I've known you forever or something.
I feel the same.
This was wonderful. So I will link everything in the show notes. I appreciate you so much taking the time to chat today.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yes. So please follow the links in the show notes so that you can follow all of the cool things that Jana and her team at LEAD are doing in the world of Pilates and health and wellness. And thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
This show would not be possible without you, my incredible listeners. It would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to Celebrating Simple Life on Apple Podcasts or download and listen on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you choose to listen. If you really want to make my day, leave a review. These reviews, ratings, and sharing screenshots of podcast episodes that were engaging for you on your Instagram stories and tagging friends that you think should hear the episode too really helps the podcast grow. It makes me so happy that I often select reviews to read on the show, and if yours is chosen, you will receive a special gift from me. Thank you for being a part of my mission to connect stories of business and life. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life.